right, so the question here is considering the movement to remove Civil War statues, what are my thoughts? I think that we're in a really interesting place and we have the opportunity to make a lot of big changes as a country. And I think that something that maybe we can look to as an example that I did some research on before was the fact that Germany has no statues or commemorations or anything like that in their public spaces of the Nazis or of Hitler. And there was a survey done in the 50s, and people said that if not for the war, Hitler would have been their greatest leader. And I think that that means to them, they recognize that he was a great leader, but they don't think that because of the choices that he made and the things that he stood up for, he's not the image that they want to put out in their society and in their public places. And that's a conscious choice that they've made to do. So a lot of people say that, General Lee was a great general. And I agree with that. I mean, it's pretty non-disputable that he had a really great mind for war and he fought really bravely. And all of the Confederate soldiers, practically all took guns from their homes and walked off to war one day. And that's really brave and something that we should talk about in our history classes and something that we should talk about in our conversations, but maybe not something that we should be commemorating with statues and paintings in our public spaces and in our government lands and stuff like that. So, did the TED Talk change my original thoughts? I wouldn't say that it changed my thoughts. I would say that it definitely opened my eyes to maybe why I should be having the thoughts that I do have. So, one of the things that he pointed out was that there is an impact that this artwork has on people in our society who are more vulnerable. So, people who aren't constantly represented through the media and through art and through TV and through movies. So, that's not white people. We're pretty much everywhere in everything you see, in every magazine, in every TV show, there's white people. They play every kind of character, they fill every kind of role. But often, in art especially, black people are seen in paintings like the ones that he showed from, a much older time period where it's this rich white family and then their black slave. Or you see black slaves working in a field. And to black people, the representation that they have in our society is as a group that used to be slaves. And that's not where we are today. And that's not the image that we need to be putting forward, especially to young children. Like he was talking about his own son, asking, why is this here? This seems unfair. And one of the things that he also said about his son is how children especially learn visually, and that's how they understand everything. So for young children, they're really impressionable and they learn from what they see and what they see adults do and what they see on TV and in movies and in art. And we don't want to teach, young black children that all they are is someone who used to be below white people. And because that's not true, that's not where we are. We've progressed so much further than that. And we have the opportunity to show that progression in our art. And maybe in an art museum, put that picture that he showed of the white family with their black slave. And then next to it, show a picture of black people in modern society and where they've come. And contrast those two things together so that they can see the progress. Because it is part of our history. And one of the things that he said that I agree with is that we can't erase it. We don't want to erase where we've been and pretend that it didn't happen, because ignoring a problem is probably worse than highlighting it. Pretending that things didn't happen that did happen that are obvious problematic issues. Like, I feel like in history class in high school, we never talked about what happened. What happened with the Native Americans? Like, where'd they go? Settlers killed them. It happened. We know that it happened. We know there was a lot of bloodshed. We hear about the Trail of Tears for a class period, and then we move on to the next thing. But it's a serious part of our history, and that's where a lot of our country's land came from. It wasn't just handed freely to us. It was taken pretty brutally and through a lot of war, and that's not something that we talk about, and that's erasure, and I think that's not what we need to do with the Civil War. We have the opportunity to do a better job than that. We have the opportunity to maybe take down a statue, but replace it with something better. Replace it with something that is maybe from the Civil War period of something else that happened at that time that is positive, a movement that happened, or If you want to commemorate General Lee because he was a great general, put him in a war museum, not in a city park. It's a different space, it's a different story that you're telling, it's a different image that you're putting forward. And I think it's important how we choose to share our story, because there are lots of places that we can go to learn about things and to learn about the Civil War and to learn about Confederacy and the Union and what was going on in our country at that time. But for people who don't take the time to do that themselves, all they're getting is that one statue or that one picture or that one painting that's in that space. And we want to make sure that the story we're putting forth can't be misinterpreted, and that we're always telling a story that we're proud of and that we want representing our country in a positive way, because we've made progress from there and we want to highlight the progress. We see where we've been and we see where we've come, and we want to show where we've come because of where we've been, not in spite of it. We need to recognize our past and put it with where we are now to show that in the best way that we can. I hope that made sense. I hope that last thing that I just did there made sense. But I think what I was trying to say was that we see where we are and we've built upon it. We didn't knock it away and pretend that it didn't happen. We had slavery. It happened. It's a thing. We did that as a country. We can't pretend that we didn't. But we've grown and we've taken steps and we've made progress. And it's part of who we are, and it has made us the country that we are. But it is something that, looking back on, we know it was not the right thing to do. And we have the opportunity to change the story that we tell, in that rather than honoring the people who did that, we recognize them, we teach about them, and we honor the progress that we've made. That is what I was trying to say. Those are my thoughts.